I think the thought of more bodywork was putting me off getting this done, but it's time to get the doors painted and fitted. This is a door that I picked up to replace the driver's door that was well and truly rotted out at the bottom. So I've got this from Facebook Marketplace. I think I paid 70 quid for it, which I think's not bad at all for a complete door. It's off a Mark III. Difference between the Mark III and the Mark IV is the location of the inner door handle. People just put a small little bracket on the Mark IVs to convert them to the Mark IIIs. It's nothing too major to swap them over. This door came complete with glass, which is bronze tinted on the series one, I think. So I do need to get another one for the passenger side at some point. This one seems to have an aftermarket central locking kit fitted as well, so we'll just get that all taken off. The one that was on my car originally was working fine, so that can all get reused. For some unknown reason, the window winder mechanism had all been pop riveted on. I'm pretty sure from factory they use some quite chunky crosshead screws, so they just need to get them all drilled out to get that out of the way. I'll be using the original electric windows that I've tested and they're working fine, so they can go back in this door when it's finished and ready to go back on the car. Not quite sure where this door is stored, but there's a bit of wood stuck in the bottom. I found lumps of plaster from a wall and also some curtain hooks, oddly. So always interesting what you can find. At least I didn't find any rust. Finally managed to start getting the glass out of the frame because it was a bit wedged in there to come off the runners. So I've not actually seen it fully to make sure that it was all intact and not damaged, but it all seems absolutely fine. Then it was just a case of getting the door as stripped down and as bare as possible, getting all the locking mechanism off of there and the check strap and everything like that, make it as light as possible. I did want to just test fit it to the car to make sure that everything lined up and nothing was twisted and bent on the door before I start cleaning it all up and getting it painted. I think I've lost count for the amount of times that I've had doors on and off this car, so I've got the hang of hanging them all by myself now. I just put a bit of masking tape up the side just so I don't catch it and chip any of the paint off because really don't fancy having to touch that up. So I'll just balance it over my shoulder, line the holes up, have a 13mm socket ready and just get them nipped up enough so I can just hold it in place and then just loosen them up a little bit later and then just line it all up. So just for a quick 5 minute line up, it's not terrible. I have got new door seals on the car at the minute, so it's a bit tight to fit in, but all the lines seem to match up nicely and the bottom edge looks good, so I'm pretty happy with that. So start DAing the door. As you can see, there's a few dints in it, so I'm going to get it all cleaned down, give it a good sand with some 80 grit paper, and then I'll have a go at just knocking some of the dints out with the hammer, just to try and take as much of the dint out as possible before giving it a skim with some filler. Not sure who'd had a go at de-locking this door before, but they put a plate at the back and then just filled the front up with just loads of MIG weld. So we'll just have to get that all ground back. I was going to de-lock the car anyway. I like the look of it and it makes it, I guess, a little bit more secure. So that's absolutely fine. There is a bit of warping around where the welding's been done. These doors are only very thin metal, so we'll just have to grind it back as much as we can and then just give it a good skim with some filler. One thing that I really do struggle with in the garage is the amount of room that I have for working around the car. I decided to make a bit of a stand for the door to go on just to make things a little bit easier, but also to hold it in the same way as which it would be when it's mounted on the car, so I can see the lines and see how it all looks without risking damaging the paintwork on the car if I was to try and prep the door on it. So these are some bits of scrap metal that I'd had laying around. It's actually part of the rollover jig that I made for when I did the underside of the car. So I've got a bit of a habit of saving a lot of scrap bits of metal. Every now and again it always comes in handy. So just give these all a bit of a clean up and then just concocted a bit of a stand together. Most of this is made out of 2x4 box section steel. There's no precise measurements on this. It's sort of just piece it together as I go along. Um, Sometimes find that the best way, to be honest, just make a start and just keep building on it from there. my welder that I use is a Artec MIG 180. I've done probably about 70% of the escort with this welder. I used to use a Clark MIG 150 Turbo, I think it was. It was a great little welder, but the wire feed just started to fail, misfeed the wire. And then so I decided to go for this, and this has been a really good little welder. Everything that I've thrown at it has been absolutely fine. So I just welded some little tabs to the side of the main stand, just measured up to the studs that come from the door, so just bolts through as if it would be bolting to the car, and then just lined it up and used the same bolts as what I'd be used in the mountings that would be used for the actual car. Just bolted that up and seems to hold it fine. All the areas of the door where I know it's going to need some filler, I've taken it right back to bare metal. The rest of the door I'm just going to go over with the DA. I've got some 80 grit on at the minute, and then I go over again with a 120 grit, and then just gone around all the other areas with a bit of sandpaper on the hand, just to get in all the little nuts and crannies. So I mixed a bit of epoxy primer up, and I just use a 1.8 nozzle spray gun that I use for any priming. Find it puts it on quite nice and neat. It's quite a thick paint. Always put this on before putting any body fillers direct to bare metal, so you don't end up with any moisture getting trapped in there or anything like that. It gives you a nice surface then to do your body work on top of. And that's the door all epoxy primed, ready for body work. As you can see, there's a few little dints that we still need to straighten out, but it's all covered. Hopefully adds a good bit of protection for the future years. After leaving the door for just over 24 hours to dry off fully, I'll give it a quick skim with some body filler, and then I'll just go over it with the DA just to take the top off. And the reason for this is because I use the powdered guide coat. If you don't sort of denib the filler, I find it just rips the pad apart. So just literally take the very top off with the DA, and then it's a case of going over it with the block and paper to try and get it as flat as what we can get it. For the other bodywork that I've done on the car, I've used the U-POL System 20 high build primer, which is a 4-to-1 mix with their hardener. Masked everything back up in the garage, and then painted the inside of the door. I always find that it's much easier to see any imperfections when you've got a bit of paint on the door. So once this is on, I give this 2 good thick coats again with the 1.8 nozzle spray gun, and then same again, guide coat and sand back. And that's the door after 2 good thick coats of paint. There's a few little imperfections that will sand out on the next session of sanding, just to get the lines exactly right, and a few little very minor dints that I can just see, but hopefully they'll just sand out with the paint. Let the door dry for a couple of days, make sure the paint's nice and hard, and then again back on with a guide coat. Just get this pushed on there, then block and sand in again to see what we're left with. As you can see, once the guide coat gets flattened off, you start to see the little imperfections appearing. I'm just going over this with some 120 grit at the minute just to take the top of it off. Them little imperfections are really shallow. Couldn't even feel them with hand before I started sanding it back. I think that's one thing that I do like about the guide coat. As I say, I'm not a painter or body shop person or anything like that, so everything that I'm doing is self-taught on this. So I'm sure there are better ways of doing this, but it's my method of trying to get it as straight as what I can. I've gone over a few of the imperfections with some U-POL 1K stopper. As I say, they're only very, very shallow imperfections, so that should be okay. And then it's just sanding them all back again. Any areas that a bit of steel's come through, I've just gone over with some aerosol epoxy primer. I honestly have the utmost respect for anybody that does this for a job. It's taken me several days to get to this point just for this single door, so I definitely wouldn't be cost effective if I was doing this for a living. So then it's just a case of getting the final prime on the door, just on the outside. I'm not too worried about the inside now, that's all looking fine. So just one top coat that can be sanded back, and then it can have the base coat applied to that. Now I did start doing some work on the passenger door, but as I started chopping the rot away from it and looking at welding new metal in, it just became apparent that it just wasn't worth saving. Every time you put the welder to it, just blew holes in it, and there was no way you could get to the back to see exactly how bad it was. All along the top where the weather strips are was just completely gone. So I am on the lookout for a good passenger door. If anybody's got one available, drop me a message, that'd be great. Then moved on to the bumpers. As you can see, this one's got a bit of rot in the corner, and I think when the car was moved around on the guy's garden, they'd pushed it with the rear bumper, so it took a bit of hammering straight. I'm going to have a go at saving these. I have got another one, but it's the non-gear RS model, so it doesn't have the holes in it for the plastic trim to attach to. They seem to come up a little bit more readily than these ones. These ones seem to fetch good money now. So I'll have a go at saving this, see what we can do with it. Start off with a flapper disc just to get everything ground back. It's mainly one corner that's rusty on the rear bumper. The front bumper, it's the centre section, which I'll put one of the photos on from when I got the car, you can see it's just rusted all down the front where the rain's come off of it and done that. But it still seems to be solid enough and straight enough, so hopefully we can put some life back into these. I like to try and restore as much as I can rather than replace it. Decided to give this Genelite rust remover a go to see what that would do. Just push it on and keep it wet for about 15 minutes or so. And that's how it looks after the first go of cleaning it up. We'll keep going on with these bumpers and see how far we can get with them. Right, back to sanding the door for well, I've lost count how many times I've actually sanded this door now. I went over it with the guide coat, and then I've blocked it all down again, and now I'm just going to give it a quick run over with the orbital sander. I've got 400 grit on this, just seems to take out the scratch marks, then it can be ready for base coat. So then it's on to cleaning the door. Just use some panel wipe, just give it a good covering all over and a good wipe down, and blow off with the air gun afterwards just to try and remove any dust. I think dust's one of my biggest problems in this garage. No matter what I do, if I wet the floor, put covers down, surround it in sheets, I still seem to find dust from somewhere. It's just one of the things that I just have to live with when you paint a car in your own garage, I guess. Got the paint mixed up. It's a 2-to-1 mix with, I use 10% thinners. It's what I used for when I painted the rest of the car. Started at the back of the door, just a very light coat, and then worked my way around to the front, did the edges first, and then just the main part of the door. Say just a really light coat this time, and you can see from the video the amount of overspray you get. Seems to have gone on quite flat, and there's no runs. I allow about 15 minutes in between each coat, just enough to let it go well and truly tacky. And then again, just make my way from the back, same order, all the way around to the front. And then once I've finished this last coat, I just go around it with my with a torch just to make sure that I've not missed anything. Surprisingly easy to miss areas, especially with all the angles on the panel. And there we have it, one finished door. So total of 4 coats of paint on that. There's a few bits of dust in the paintwork, but as I say, it's pretty much impossible to avoid it in this garage, but pretty happy with it. We'll leave it to set overnight and hopefully get it bolted back to the car. Again, thank you for watching. If anybody's got any tips or guidance or any other ways that they'd recommend doing things, I'm always willing to learn. So drop me a comment. Be working on the bumpers next, and the grille and the other plastics that clip onto the bumper. So I'm starting to put that together now. So hopefully within 3 or 4 more days, I'll have another video out.